Go ahead. Good evening, good evening, good evening. Welcome, welcome, welcome to all of you who are joining us tonight. We are here tonight with another rich conversation and topic. This is the Woman to Woman show on the New You Nation Network, and we are just excited tonight to be talking about embracing the present moment and what that means to each and every one of us and how that has helped us as we move forward on our journeys. And before we get started, we are going to do what we normally do, which is introduce ourselves and say what we are grateful for. So I will start by saying that I am Theodora Carter. I am a certified life coach. My passion is to empower women to change their lives by helping them build a toolkit to navigate the twists and turns that they may encounter along their life journey. And I am grateful to be here yet another day. I am grateful for this past weekend where I got to, just spend some time with colleagues and friends and family, but most of all, to get through Father's Day, which is usually a tough time for me. And so that's what I am grateful for. And I'm going to toss it to you, Netta.
My name is Manetta Fields. I have 30 plus years as a credentialed healthcare professional, but in the current space, I am a certified coach using the Gallup Strengths as a tool. I am also a holistic health educator, which leads me, well, I'm the owner of Holistically Motivated LLC. So it leads me to share what I'm grateful for. This past weekend, we did a Reclaim Your Health event as a team, and it was wildly successful. The whole goal is to have impact and help people understand that you do have a choice when it comes to your health and your wellness.
Yes. Good evening, everyone. My name is Sheila Isom. I am an insurance claims professional, and I am also the owner of a few businesses, one of which is as a Color Street nail polish strips consultant, and I am also a notary public. And I am grateful that we are embracing more and more the role and the importance of fathers and fatherhood. And just like Theo, it's kind of a tough day to get through. But to see people celebrating those fathers and not taking anything away from them that day, it was just such a refreshing and well-deserved honor that we have to pay to men, because our fathers are very, very important, and oftentimes they get overlooked because of mothers and Mother's Day. But we need to let them know that they play no less of a role in a child's life than the mother. Yeah, they,
Awesome.
they are definitely needed.
Before you all move forward, I just had a thought. The topic is embracing the present moment. And it sounds like you both did that, even though you've lost your fathers. Could you share a little bit more about what that looked like for you? And I guess what it was like prior to healing and then during the process of healing? Because, that's an ongoing process.
Yeah. So I will just say that honestly, for me, I think it's been what? Oh my God. Over 5 years now, I think maybe since 2016. And so, initially it was tough, right? It was, I think I operated in a mode of just kind of acting like Father's Day, wasn't here. And now what I do when it comes to Father's Day, because Father's Day, of course I used to spend the time with my dad doing something, but now I try to do something, to keep myself busy, but also something that he would do. So my father was someone that was, you know, served. He served a lot, right? And so one of the things I did this Father's Day was I volunteered to serve as a, you know, a volunteer at an event for a Juneteenth festival with my job, right? And so I went out, and after church service went out and was able to just give back, right? By being there and having people visit our booth and chat and talk with people. And like Sheila said, seeing other people celebrate, right, their fathers, right? But now for me, like my dad loved ice cream. So on his birthday, I usually have ice cream, right? I go somewhere, I sit, have ice cream, and it's me and him, right?
Yeah.
So, and he was a vanilla guy. I like mint chocolate chip. But, you know, but you know, so that's something that I do. But it truly is. Part of it was me just even recognizing that I was avoiding. Right, I had to recognize that. For me, I would kind of act like, oh, okay, you know, I knew it was Father's Day, but I would kind of avoid it being Father's Day. And now I just embrace that it is Father's Day, that people are celebrating their fathers. I also have a wonderful girlfriend who never forgets me. So she either sends me a card or sends me a message, right? That says she's praying for me and she's thinking about me and reminding me, you know, to celebrate my dad's life.
Good. Well, for me, it's going on. This is the second Father's Day that we've had without my father being here, because he passed away in 2021, in late 2021. So naturally, the first one was hard. And I don't know how to say this without it sounding a little crazy, but having already had my mother pass away kind of made it easier to accept that he's not here on Father's Day and that life goes on, because I'm pretty sure it took quite a few Mother's Days before I was able to really feel like it was okay to celebrate Mother's Day without my mother being here. So with this being the second one, there's a greater level of acceptance that Daddy's not here, that, you know, that he's still looking down on us and still guiding us and watching us and, you know, and cheering us on and scolding us when necessary. But I tend to make sure that my focus is on my husband, right? Because we want to celebrate the father that he is. And so that's a lot more of my energy probably goes towards that, because it is a distraction for me. But it does get easier as time goes by, but you know, the ache is still there.
Yeah.
You still, even, you know, you still have that desire to pick up that phone and say, oh, it's time to call Daddy and wish him a happy Father's Day.
Yeah. And to think about what you would have been doing, right? Like was calling or doing something. But the other thing is, right, it's just really I think being intentional, because I think, you know, for me, it was like after my dad, it was like back-to-back losses, right? And so one of the things I've also learned to do as it pertains to just embracing the moment is trying to live for the people who are no longer here, right? So trying to honor their memories by truly just, you know, embracing that they live on through me. So if I stop living, right, what happened? So just trying to be the best person that I can be to honor their memories is another way.
That's good. Thank you all for being vulnerable and transparent. I was just curious about that. It fit the topic.
Yeah,
certainly.
Yeah. And so it's funny because one of the things, you know, I always try to look up, right, the topic that we're talking about. And it's funny because there were a couple of definitions, but all of them say the same thing, right? Like being present in the moment means that now and here, right? Like, but one of the definitions that really resonated with me, because I talk a lot about intention, right? It was like live with intention and make sure each day is meaningful and fulfilling in some way.
Mm-hmm.
Right. And so how do you guys ensure that you're intentional about, what you're doing each day?
Well, for me, it's, of course, prayer and getting that guidance first thing in the morning, giving God the first fruit of the day. And that will set the course and the tone for the day. Because, we get up with our own agenda. And sometimes that's not the best thing to do. So submitting my will and my intention to the greater intention for the day. So that's kind of how I focus and frame my day.
Yeah. And Sheila, because like you, like me, right, working a full-time job and all this other stuff. So how do you navigate?
I'll be honest with you, especially since, this is like my time of the year. So the weather sets the mood for me.
Oh,
right. So it kind of, I allow it to kind of determine my pace, how quickly I'm going to move around, how quickly I am actually going to embrace that day. Because if I know that it's going to be sunny and warm, it's like, forget about everything else that's on the news. I need to know what the weather report is. So if it's telling me that it's going to be sunny and warm later on, then I am in a terrific mood. If it's going to be a sullen type of day with the rain, I kind of, like take a deep breath. And then I remind myself that there are changing seasons for a reason, and then that we need it. We need the rain. So while I may not want it to rain, I embrace that we need the rain, because there's so many benefits, not just to the earth, but even for ourselves physically. So I don't move as quickly when the rain hits, but I try to take it for what it's actually worth.
But I think something that you said is so important, right? Is you shift your mindset. Like, you didn't say you shift your mindset, but as you talked about, how you prepare for the day based on the weather report, right? It really does take, a mindset shift. Like, you literally have to step back. And I think we forget how important it is, right, to shift your mindset. Like, how important that is to living in the moment, being in the moment, right? Because I think sometimes the only way you can be in the moment, especially when you're dealing with something that's challenging, is to know how do you shift those thoughts that you're feeling, right? And so what are some tips that you could probably give to people for shifting your gears?
Well, I think just, Netta said, the prayer part is very important, right? And it doesn't always have to be, the bowing of the head and the closing of the eyes. Sometimes it's just having that conversation, right? Because then, when you're having a conversation, that there's going to be some feedback. It's going to be some mutual talking, right? So allow yourself to have that time with God, because then that'll also lead you to have the time for yourself. Right. And it helps to give you clarity about what your next move is going to be and how you should be thinking forward. So that allows you to kind of, when you whether it's prayer, whether it's meditation, or just simply taking some deep breaths, right? Not trying to react, but to just give it a little time, and then it'll come to you.
Yeah. I literally, I have to lay in bed. Like, I can't pop right up. Like I lay there, I say thank you, right? Thank you, God. I have and I think I posted this the other day on my wall. I have a message that says, something about something wonderful is going to happen today, right? Like that's my reminder. Like, right, I look up at that, and then I just literally will lay there, and I go through this motion of shifting my mind, like, because I'll have that thought of, I'll think about what I got to do for the day, and then I'll be like, nope, like, how can you get past that? Like, how can you get past that negative thought that's creeping in? Because for me, I really got to be mindful of that, because I have to manage my emotions, right? And so it's important for me to take some time to like really sit back and digest what lies ahead, but also preparing the night before helps me live in the present.
Mm-hmm. That's great. That's good. For me, I was thinking about gratitude for whatever is happening in the moment is very helpful, because for some of us, the default is to find what's wrong. Instead, focus on what's right, and just know that there's always room for improvement, right? None of us are perfect. So sometimes we get stuck in this perfect ideal of what things should be. No, just be present in the moment, and locate why you're feeling the way you're feeling. What is this coming from? What is this stemming from? What is this about? It's usually not about what the thing is you're focusing on. It's coming from someplace else. So just really, like a lot of the physicians, they get to the root. It doesn't just apply to disease processes. Get to the root of what you're feeling and why you're feeling that. And that helps you come out of it with clarity and awareness. And then it helps you arrive at a place of, right, what's in my control, what's not in my control. Whose business is this? Is it mine or is it not? So just really getting clear on the root of what you're feeling and why that thought is there. Where did it come from?
Yeah, that's good. I read this quote. It's from George Harrison. It says, "It's being here now that's important. There's no past and there's no future. Time is a very misleading thing. All there is ever is the now. We can gain experience from the past, but we can't relive it. And we can hope for the future, but we don't know if there is one." All right.
Good.
And how powerful is that, right? Because, we're sitting here, we're talking about, how we embrace the present moment. But I always just want to be transparent and say, it's not easy.
Right.
No, it's not.
It takes intentionality.
It takes intention. And honestly, it has to become a habit.
Yes. Right. Because you think about it, like how we were talking about Father's Day, right? It's so hard not to think about what was, right? Because clearly we want daddy back. We want our fathers back. So it's hope. So you go back into the past and you start reliving some of the times that you had with them, right? And then, you're there, and then you might start thinking, and Netta, you might do this too, but I keep thinking about, one day I'm going to be able to celebrate Father's Day with my son. And my husband's son. And it's like, but wait a minute, that's far off in the future, and I don't know if that's going to happen. So it's really hard to just stay with today, especially when we're in an age where you have to start planning ahead for the future, because you don't know what the future holds, but whatever it holds, you got to be ready for it, right?
Yeah.
And
that's why, because you really can't, because you don't know what the future holds. But conversely, we also know that we have to live for today, because there are so many people who thought they had a day today and don't.
That's right.
Yeah. And that's the thing that I was gonna say is like, the how impactful it is to say, right, live in the now, right? Because we can't get tomorrow back. We don't know what lies ahead of us. It's so true. And we miss so many moments, right?
Yep.
Because we're focused on the past or the future, and we're not living in the now, right?
Yep.
And there's so many things that pass us by because we're not living right here in the present moment.
Mm-hmm.
And so it really is something to really trying to create that space of what's happening right now. Because the other thing I recognize too is, right, looking towards the future can be stressful, right? And so how many of us are even creating our own stress?
Right.
Because we're not right here now, right? We're thinking of, first of all, we're thinking about something that happened in the past that either is making us sad or making us mad or whatever, and altering our personalities and attitudes, or we're hoping for something in the future or trying to figure out what's going to happen in the future, which is giving us anxiety and stress.
I was just going to say, I read a study that spoke about anxiety is rooted in either looking back or looking forward.
Mm-hmm.
Because you can't change either one of those, but you want to.
Yeah.
And the spiral happens when I wish I had, and what if, and then what about?
Mm-hmm. Right.
So if we can just release some of those things, like you said, the stress and anxiety that we deal with can be diminished just being present.
Yeah.
And also, I've shared before, whose business is it? Is this my business, someone else's business, or God's business?
Mm-hmm.
And only one of those you can actually control.
Yeah.
So we kind of figure out locate where you are in that instance, what you're thinking about. It can release the anxiety associated with whatever the thought is.
Yeah. And really, truly, like, I mean, and it's something I'm learning every day, right? It really is something to just like asking that question that you said before. Like, I literally would be like, okay, what can you control in this situation right now? Right. Mm-hmm. And then I'll figure out if there's something I can control. If there's something, if I can't, I'm just going to release it and, figure out how I work through it. Because otherwise I'm sitting up here pounding my head, trying to figure out a solution to something that I have no control over. Right. And so it really has helped with releasing, some of the stress that because I will honestly say, I mean, and I was telling my therapist this as I was patting myself in the back. I said, I'm really proud of myself because I am becoming more self-aware, right? Like I'm really beginning to recognize, right, the things that I do so that I can pull myself back, right? And so one of the ways I do that is by really centering myself and saying, okay, what part of this can you control? Right? Like I was expecting a package, right? Me getting upset, wondering, whatever, I called the person that sent it. I said, listen, they said XYZ about the package. I need you to call them. And I'm sure to come tomorrow, right? And then I just let it go because I was like, at the end of the day, if it doesn't arrive, there's nothing I can do about it.
Exactly. Right. And it steals the moment.
Yes. For sure.
Don't allow those things that you cannot control steal the moment. And it's like it's ongoing. Yeah. We have to remind ourselves of this constantly. I'm not an expert at that, but awareness, So, and so those moments get shorter. I don't live in them as long because and in the end, am I going to be happy that I spent my time worrying about this thing? when I could have had impact somewhere else that really mattered.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And it's so funny because, like, one of the things I found also was, right, 6 reasons for why it's important to be present, right? And one is, and normally I'm like so proud of us because we normally touch on the things that are out there. So I'm like, oh my God, we're so smart, right? But one of the first things they say is realize that you are not your thoughts.
Mm-hmm.
Right? Like, it's like they said, it's easy to let your thoughts and emotions take control of your life. It's even easier to judge those thoughts and allow them to influence the way you see yourself in the world. How has that impacted you in the past? Like, how have your thoughts shaped how you saw yourself?
That's interesting. The first thing that comes to mind is the thoughts that I had about myself were in relation to what somebody else thought or said. It wasn't even mine to begin with. It was influenced by an exterior situation.
Wow.
And so once you own, acknowledge, accept, and value who God made you to be, their words have less weight. And eventually they have very little, if any, weight. And so I allowed that to impact the thoughts I had of myself because I wasn't clear on who I am.
Wow.
After that, I realized that I still do it. I am the person that's getting in my own way. So it's not so much of anymore of what somebody else may have thought or said that influenced what I thought or said or felt, but it's me, instead of taking the now and realizing that even within the now, there's some things that I can't control, trying to control them. And not stepping aside and saying either, hey, this is not my show, or this is something that I need to give to God. I get in my own way. And it's not because I think I know better than anybody else, but I'm trying to not just control my own narrative, but to solve the problem right then and there by myself. When sometimes I can't do that. And it takes me a little while to figure out that either I need help or it's just not meant for me to take care of that at that time.
And that's so interesting that you say that, because I believe that's for me too, right? Like, I get in my own way, but I get in my own way because I make up stories in my head. Right? And so I would take one little thing and I done created a whole, this is the scenario, right? And this is why. And so it is something to really, like, the first tip that I will say is to being present is to develop an awareness of your thoughts, right? Because we've all spoke about the importance of being mindful of what we're thinking and how we start our day, right? And how we set an intention around what, like, I have stuff all around my house, like on my desk. I got, today is going to be a great day. I got on my wall, but really how you set the tone for how you're going to embrace the day and confront each moment, right? As it comes.
So as you're saying that, of course, a scripture comes to mind about thoughts. And it's Philippians 4:8. It's my checklist I've shared with you all before. If it doesn't fit the checklist, you have to release it. And usually before you get to the bottom of the checklist, you have reason to release it. So it's Philippians 4:8. The thought, it has to be true. It has to be honorable. It has to be fair or just. It has to be pure. It has to be lovely. It has to be commendable. And if all of those things are checked, then you can proceed with the thought. So many thoughts we have aren't lovely at all. So you can kind of go ahead and scratch that off. Is it a pure thought? Is it a true thought? And one of the things that Byron Katie says in her questions of the turnaround, is it true? Is it absolutely true? How do you know it's true? Because we make things true that really aren't.
Yeah.
And that goes back to that control and all of that stuff.
Yeah.
No, that's not your business. Yeah.
And we want to make stuff that's not our business.
And that's where the stress and anxiety comes from. You can't control that. Release that thing. And I want to ask the question, how do you release? When you've arrived at the place, understanding that this isn't yours to carry, how do you release the thought? What's your process?
So, wow. So one is sometimes I will take a step back and walk away, like just get up and walk. Prayer, I bring a scripture. Sometimes there's a scripture that will come. Like one of my favorite is God will perfect that which concerns me.
Yep.
Right. So that, but a lot of times, and also depends on the moment, right? So if it's in the middle of work, right? One of my colleagues is on standby in the chat. So I'll be like,
that's your lifeline. You got 3. You'll use this.
I use my lifeline, and they'll say, "You got this, ma'am. Don't sweat the small stuff."
Right.
And then I'll breathe. I'll be like, you know what? But honestly, I also literally will say, what about this can you control? Like I will say that out loud to myself. So a lot of it, I would say my process includes me talking to myself and talking to God, right? But definitely that scripture, God will perfect that which concerns you. That's my go-to. Like, it just reminds me that, you know what? This not your battle to fight. Right? Because a lot of times it may not be my battle to fight. Because I, also live in this realm of wanting people to do things the way I do things sometimes, right?
Many times.
Yeah, right. Many times, right. Most of the time,
so,
just shy of all of the time. 99.93% of the time, right?
So I have to take a step back, but I also have, and I tell you, this woman will live forever. One of my mentors, my very first mentor, I always bring, like she's in the back of my head, and I will hear her say, Theo, everyone does not do things the way you do things, but it still will get done. And then I release it. Because, I have a certain way that I feel like things should get done and what it is. And I'm thinking like, why are they doing it like this, right? And then I'll be like, nope, this is not my battle. So I have a couple of ways that I have to deal with stuff depending on what's going on at the moment.
Yeah, same here. When it finally hits me, and I do have to say finally because sometimes it'll come right away and sometimes it'll take its time, right? But then when it does hit, I have to take a step back, right? Take a deep breath. And I'm either going to find that I put too much thought in it. It's a lot simpler to work out than how I've made it out to be. Or again, realizing that it's not my battle and I have to move on.
That's good. For me, of course. All right, Lord, what we doing? You know, I need your help. This is bigger than me. And I don't want to be outside of your will, because we know that don't turn out well. So, you know, just being clear, you know, Lord, what are my steps? What do I order my steps? What do I do?
Yes.
And then also understanding that we are all, I'm going back to strengths, uniquely created. You know, when you become aware of what your strengths are, you also become aware of when you're in the balcony of them and when you're in the basement of them. And of course, in the basement is not going to serve you well. So again, knowing what your strengths, talents, gifts, however you want to term it, knowing what those are gives you clarity on what your strategy is. And to your point, Theo, wanting people to do things a certain way, because we are all so unique, they have their own way. And that really did help me in releasing a lot of that tight grip on you know, how things should be done. There's no way. That's putting pressure on you and the other person, because nobody's going to be successful in that realm.
And I think we also have to be gentle with ourselves. Right? Because there are times when none of this that we're talking about will happen.
Right.
We won't live. That moment we might go in a whole direction that we shouldn't go in, right? And do something we totally shouldn't do. And it's being gentle with yourself and forgiving yourself for those times when, you forget that you should have handled something a different way.
Yeah, don't lose the lesson of it.
Yes.
There are always lessons to be learned. And once we learn them, we are tasked with teaching them by how we show up. So we can change those we're connected with, you know, change the environments we find ourselves in based upon embracing that moment that might not be our shining moment, but there's still a lesson that's worth learning.
Right.
And it's so true. Like, and so the second thing is, right, God, I feel like this is written for me. And it talks about eliminating procrastination. Like living in the moment helps you eliminate procrastination. Because it says sometimes, you know, procrastination comes from you trying to be perfect, right? Which kind of fits into that wanting things to be done a certain way, right? And so it says when you really are mindful about just being present in the moment of what you're doing, you release some of, you know, that procrastination, and before you know it, the task is done, right? And so I think this little topic was meant for me today.
That's really good.
But it is good, because think about how many, like, at least for me, you know, how many times have you reread an email or looked at a document over and over, or really studied something because you're like, oh my God, did I miss something? And something that should have been done in like 15 minutes takes 30 minutes to an hour, right?
Oh, yeah, for sure.
And so that's part of not living in the moment. That's not like just being present. And I did this, I proved it, it's good to go. And if there's a mistake, I can always correct it.
Right.
Again, that's the grace that comes in. Last time I checked, none of us are perfect.
Yep.
And so, I think that's a good point too. I'm sorry that you bring up, is that, you know, procrastination comes from trying to be perfect, because you're probably looking at it as that I can't move on from this task until it is complete. That means that last period is there, and the proofreading has been done over and over again. The additions, the deletions, all of that is done until it is to your satisfaction. But not realizing that thinking that you just want to make sure that everything is done is the equivalent to you trying to make it perfect.
Yeah.
When, just like you said, you can go back to it at some point.
Right. I remember watching an episode of Dr. Phil back in the day. I remember Dr. Phil. And there was a person on there that struggled greatly with procrastination. And the end result was that he was telling the person it was rooted in arrogance and pride.
Mm.
And the reason for that is you're assuming that you're going to have that time to get that thing done. That's a prideful thought that somebody that you're going to be, just because it's your plan, you're going to have time to get to that when only you're promised this moment. So embracing the present moment helps you to understand tomorrow, the next 10 minutes are not promised to any of us. So I remember raising my children with that mindset. After I heard that, you don't get to tell me that you're going to do this tomorrow when you have the time to do it today. Because your arrogance is telling you tomorrow is promised to you. It is not. But what you do have is a gift of this present moment. Use it like it's a gift.
Yeah. And that's so important, because the next one is, right, don't live your life on autopilot. Right? It talks about embracing the present means that you're not going through the motions of life.
Right.
Like, you're really, like we started out, right? You're intentional. Right. And we all had to grow into intention.
Oh, for sure.
Oh, yes. Yes.
We all grew into intention. We were not intentional. Thank you, Dr. DC Marshall.
Right.
Right. But we all grew into it. Right. And it does make a difference. And I say that now because I still go into periods in and out of it.
Of
right?
course.
There are days when I'm super intentional.
Yep.
And then there are days when I'm off.
Mm-hmm.
Right. But the reality is I can tell the difference in my days. Like today, I felt so much lighter today because I finished what I was doing earlier. I took time to have dinner before I hopped on here, right? So things that normally I'm like, when I get off of here, I got to go eat. I got to go figure out what I'm going to eat. I got to exercise, right? So I was mindful about what did I need to do to make sure, because what is one of the things I struggle with? Sleep.
Mm-hmm.
So what did I need to do to make sure that I wasn't up to all wee hours of the night
Mm-hmm.
so that I could get a decent amount of sleep?
Mm-hmm.
Right? Yeah. Because that is one of the things that I struggle with is, I don't know why, but at 11 o'clock, it seems like I got so many things that I need to take care of.
Yeah. Yeah. One of my mentors shared, I'm sure many of you have heard of time blocking, and time blocking to the extent that, if you have 2 hours in the morning prior to your first commitment, mm-hmm. and you have 4 things that are required of you at home before you do that, then break it into 20-minute segments. Mm-hmm. And that's only 1 hour and 20 minutes, and you still got time to spare.
Mm-hmm. Well, one of the things that I definitely do, and I don't know if I want to tell this secret to everybody, but hey, they'll know anyway because they can't get through. I literally have set on my phone, do not disturb. Mm-hmm. So from 7 a.m., well, really it goes on about maybe 9:30, 10 o'clock the night before, and does not come off until like 9 the next morning, right? So there's only you can set in your phone. Here's a tip. You can set in a phone that the people that can get through, right? Because there are some people that you might need to hear from, right? As emergencies, but in all reality, there's only like maybe 2 or 3 people, but anybody else, like the call will come through, the text will come through, but my phone will not go off. It silences it, right? And so that gives me time to not be distracted by this thing that we think we can't.
Yes.
Right? This device that before it even existed, we we're fine. But
You're
now
fine.
you have to come back home to get it, right? Remember the days when you just would wait till you get home and you listen to the messages on the voicemail?
Right.
Now it's like, oh my God, I left my phone. I got to drive back.
And go back and get that phone. Yep.
We lose that present moment.
Yeah, exactly. But now I literally have on so to your point, that time, especially in the morning, is important to me. That 7 to 9 is the time. Prayer time. I'm getting ready for work. I'm sitting still. Whatever it is that I need to do to get my mind set for the day, and to also make sure I'm evaluating the things I have to do for the day. Right, it's part of setting that intention.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's good. That's really good. I had on my list of things that allow us to embrace the present moment, and it was taking a break from social media and technology.
Mm. Yeah.
That gives us a lot of moments back, because I don't know about you all, I love research, and once you read one thing, there's another suggestion that kind of sort of matches what you were just reading about. And I mean, you start researching one topic, and before you know it, you're way off course, and it's an hour and a half later.
Yeah.
So taking a break from social media and technology can assist us in embracing the present moment.
Mm-hmm.
For real.
And I think one of the things for me is relishing that quality time that you get to spend with yourself.
Mm.
My drive to work is usually a little bit contentious because I'm trying to get to work on time, and all these other cars won't let me. But the drive home, even though I may be encountering the same thing, there's a relief to it, not just because I finally ended my work day, but because now I have that time in between work and home to spend with myself and my thoughts.
Mm-hmm.
Now, it could be that I just need to enjoy the music that's on the radio, or laugh at the talk show that I'm listening to, or it might be making that phone call, not hands free, making that phone call to somebody that I had been meaning to reach out to, or that person that I needed to check up on. But using that time for me and myself and nothing else, no work, no family, nothing else, but just for me, allows me to embrace the now.
That's really huge.
And it's so true, because everyone always like, oh my God, you drive drive from North Carolina to New York and back, right? But I tell people that is the most relaxing time for me.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
I will literally get in my car. I have either my music on or audiobook, or sometimes it's just silence. But the reality is I always have my phone plugged in, so it's on driving. So it goes to that do not disturb, right? And so it's like the most peaceful time, because even if a call gets through, right, I have the option to take it or not, because I'm driving, right? I get to stop whenever I want and just sit, like it's kind of like I'm in no hurry.
Right.
It is. It's like I'm literally like, okay, I know it's gonna take me a while to get there, so I'm just gonna take the time to get there. But I also relish in just that alone time.
That's good. My kids called me on the carpet this weekend. They asked me, what day of the week is free from appointments for you? And I was stuck because there isn't one.
Really, Nana?
I work.
No, that's the one thing that I did. I want to say after 2 or 3 months after starting, I literally Mondays are usually the days that I don't book appointments. Mondays and Fridays. Like Friday, I might do part of the day, but those are the days that I block off to maybe just do, administrative stuff or whatever. But yeah, you got to pick a day for no appointments.
Yeah, and those are the things. Talking about being in the present moment. For those of us who are givers and love to serve, we don't always think of ourselves, right? Because we want to make sure everybody has what they need. Because if I can help them, I want to help.
Yeah. Right.
But in helping, I need to be the best me to give the best service.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yep.
And so I'm grateful. It's kind of like, you drive the same path and you miss the beauty along the way.
Yeah.
That's kind of like, what, you're missing some things here that are beautiful for you. And it's okay to do some things for you.
Yep. And so now, I'm going to be asking you later this week. Now, what day did you choose? Because I do have a date, and like you say, like if someone really needs to talk to me, I might be like, okay, I can squeeze you in. But for the most part, yeah. So well, I'm sure your kids will be on it before me anyway.
Oh yeah. Oh yeah. Because look, what's going to end up happening is that they're going to start looking at her schedule and telling her what she needs to cut out.
Exactly.
Absolutely. And it kind of goes back to Dee Marshall, Theo, where she talked about things in your space. And if you have so many things in your space, you don't have room for anything new. So time, talent, and treasures, they can all fall in that category. If you don't have time to hear from God, you don't have time to get the new idea because you're constantly on the grind. You're missing the present moment.
You got to slow down. You really need to. Like and I learned that. Like I really had, because I was like, wait a minute, I'm going non-stop.
Yes.
Right. And it really is important because it's also good for your health, your mental health.
Of course. I know this stuff, right?
And it's funny you say that because, and how I started talking earlier about how I am a summer girl. One of the best times that I've had was when my brother and sister-in-law and niece used to live in Rochester, New York, and I would drive up there from Jersey. And it's a 5-hour drive. Going during the fall and really appreciating the foliage.
Oh my God.
See the beauty of the leaves changing colors. And it just puts you in a totally different state because again, while you're driving and paying attention to the road, you're also looking at the beauty in this world. And again, it's the trees that are telling you that we live in a beautiful world. Embrace it and enjoy it. Because it brought so much peace and serenity. And no matter how many times I made that trip, the trees didn't change. They didn't jump across the highway, right? They didn't multiply. They didn't bend and waver or anything like that. The trees were there, the same trees each and every time, going down and coming back. But to be able to be in awe of the beauty each and every time is something that we take for granted.
It really is. Like, I didn't really appreciate it till I started, like the first time I drove down. And I took 81, right? My brother 81. And there's this spot in Virginia, when you drive by, it's like a postcard. I literally was like, if there was somewhere for me to pull over to the side of the road, I probably would have pulled over to the side of the road and just sat there because it was so relaxing. And I think that, we miss the beauty that's all around us because we're always trying to go so fast.
I was thinking about that as Sheila, you were giving us that word picture, describing the drive. I'm literally envisioning where you're going. I just thought, wow, how often do we miss the beauty just where we are?
Mm-hmm.
In our homes, in our relationships, the growth that's happening. You think about children, you're around that child all the time. And then when somebody says, oh my goodness, look at how much they've grown. Well, we miss it because we are not necessarily embracing the present moment.
Mhm.
So just as it's beautiful to go and behold something away from us, I think just being mindful to embrace the beauty that's right in our presence.
Yes. Yes.
Yeah. And I think also being mindful, right? It allows you to really set healthy boundaries, right? Because just think about it, right? Like me, putting my phone on do not disturb, or even driving and saying I'm not going to answer the phone, right? That's a choice, right? That I made so that I have, some peace, some alone time, especially when I was working my last job, right? When I was, at that exec level, right? It was like I was never off. I was always on. Like they could get me text, cell phone, whatever. And when I started driving down here, it was like my phone was off, right? And so if a call came through, I might be like, oh, I missed it, right? But it was like so peaceful to have that 1 or 2 hours of not having to answer a call, right? Or to be on the phone, or like you said, Sheila, to catch up with people that I didn't have a time to talk to, right? But I also literally right now, like, because I'm busy, my friends are busy, like life has put us in different directions. We actually schedule time to talk. Right. So like me and one of my girlfriends, we have a pact. Every other month, it's somebody's turn to call the other. God bless you, Sheila. So like it might be my turn to call her this month, her turn the following month. And if one of us missed, we'll be like, oh, you missed, but it's something that keeps us on track, right? We text, hey, are you free? Right. And so that's the way like me and my friends have set healthy boundaries with each other so that we can still communicate, but are mindful of all the other stuff that we have going on. Right. But it also allows you that time to just be in the moment, to be like, I'm recognizing how important it is to have that time to just be still.
That's good. As we are on the wrap up, I pulled this article, and it's from this expert and owner of the business Rethinking Resiliency. Her name is Amanda Lynch, but she recommends something called AIR, AIR. And that's just what you described, Theo. Awareness, intention, and response. Awareness that you all needed this schedule to communicate with each other, the intentionality on who's going to call when, and the response when it doesn't happen. So that's really, I love that. AIR, AIR, awareness, intention, and response.
Yeah, that's good. But I think, and as you said, as we wrap up, I think that would be my tip for anyone, right? Practice AIR. What is AIR?
Yeah.
Breathing, right? Take some time to breathe and smell the roses, right? But because that takes being aware, right? Being aware of your surroundings. It takes being intentional about doing it. And what's your response if you don't, right? What's the consequence? It could be a response or a consequence, and consequence doesn't fit. But if you think about it, what's the response that happens when you're not aware and you're not intentional about taking care of you because being present in the moment is also a way of taking care of you in the moment.
Mm-hmm. And my final thoughts are actually going to be a quote from Annetta. Are you in the basement or in the balcony? Whether it's of your thoughts or your actions, right? Are you in the basement still looking at living in the past? Are you in the basement worried about things that you cannot control and still trying to control them? Are you in the basement because you are just not allowing yourself to flourish, right? You can't get from the basement to the balcony in one fell swoop, right? You got to go from floor to floor to floor. And sometimes, and those of us that we know as we mature, sometimes as you start going up the stairs to the next floor, you're thinking about something and you might remember that you left something on another floor, or you can't find it, so you might have to kind of backtrack, and that's okay, because that's where the awareness and the forgiveness for yourself comes in, right? But you work your way all the way up to the balcony, because it's at the balcony that you see the beauty, that you can take it in, right? That you become intentional and you breathe in that air.
Yeah,
that's good.
That was good. Come on now.
That's the bow. That's the bow on the evening.
That I had to write that down. Are you in the basement or the balcony?
But
you think about where you want to be.
Yeah, I mean, and that's it. That's what it's all about, right? Embracing the present moment is really figuring out where is it that you want to be, right? Because you can live in the past, which really holds nothing for you but lessons. So take the lessons from the past, let the stuff go that's not a lesson, sit here in the present and live in the moment, and God will take care of the future.
There you go.
Well, amen.
Amen.
Amen. Amen.
And so you guys we were so wrapped up in this conversation. I apologize. You have been watching the Women to Women show on the New You Nation Network. We are here every Monday at 8 p.m. Unless, sometimes we take a holiday off, but even some holidays we're here. So we are here 8 p.m. every Monday, Eastern Standard Time, New You Nation Network. Women to Women show, where we are here to just have really lively, positive, encouraging, and motivating conversation. So we hope to see you again next Monday at 8 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. And until then, we will leave you with our quote that we always end with, which is,
Truth
plus
equals
healing. Have a great night, everyone. Thank you,
everyone.
Good night.